Okay, guys, so today we're going to talk about three main groups. First phylum, Platyhelminthes. We talked about these a little bit before. Platy means flat, helminth means worm. They're dorso-ventrally flat. Remember, dorsal means what? Back, ventral means belly. So they're squished from back toward belly. They're not segmented, which limits kind of how they can move. Because you're segmented, right? Your joints or your segments. They do have a definite head and what we call cephalization. Cephalo means head. This doesn't just mean they have a head. It means they have what in their head? Sensory organs, to pick up different kinds of sensations. All flatworms are carnivorous. They're all meat eaters. A lot of them are parasites, but there are also some that are free-living, not parasitic. They don't have a body cavity. They're acoelomate. They don't need it because they don't have any what? No organs. Don't need a body cavity if you don't have organs. They have bilateral symmetry, just like you. That if we drew an imaginary line in the middle of your body, you would have two sides that are basically mirror images of each other. And that's opposed to the kind of symmetry that cnidarians have. What kind do they have? The jellyfish. What kind of symmetry do they have? What's sort of the opposite of radial? I just said radial symmetry. Did you say it already, Cal? Also, the flatworms, unlike the cnidarians, have three germ layers: ecto, meso, endoderm. And those three layers basically make your body. They're your body's stem cells. Also, unlike the cnidarians, well, not so much unlike, but a little bit more advanced nerves. They have more nerves, more branched. But just like the cnidarians, they take in food and excrete waste through the same opening. The mouth is the anus, basically. It's called the pharyngeal opening. That refers to like the throat. So they're said to have what's called an incomplete digestive system. Incomplete. There's only one end. That means things have to move through there two ways. They have to go in and come out the same hole. All right, three main classes in this phylum. Remember, we go domain, kingdom, phylum, and then class. So Trematoda, these are flukes. These are all parasites. These are nasty things. You don't want to get them in you. I'm going to show you a picture here of one. This is the most, maybe the most famous kind of fluke that infects people. It's called schistosome. The disease is schistosomiasis. These things get in you when you're wading in fresh water, a lake or a pond. It's only in tropical places, though. They burrow into your skin. They get into your blood vessels. Ladies, show me. Get into your blood vessels. They get into your intestines. Burrow holes in things. Suck blood. When you defecate, when you poop, the eggs come out, land in the water, hatch into this larva. That larva only makes it through the rest of the cycle if there's a certain kind of snail. It has to live in the snail for a while. Inside the snail, it transforms into a different kind of larva. That comes out and then can burrow through your skin, get into your body, start the whole cycle over again. If they're trying to control these, what's the easiest way to try to control the schistosome? Kill the snails. They poison the lakes, kill the snails. And that gets rid of the schistosomes most of the time. The next class is a class called Cestoda, and these guys are the tapeworms. You get tapeworms from eating what? Undercooked meat, any kind of meat. It can be pork, it can be beef, as the picture shows, it could be sushi. When an individual gets tapeworms, most of the time the tapeworm hangs around in the small intestine. This right here, that's a long tapeworm living in somebody's intestines. It's an x-ray of it. Why the small intestine? What's going on in the small intestine? Almost all the digestion and what else? What else? Digestion and absorption. This is when nutrients go from your digestive system into, where do they get absorbed to? The blood. They go from the digestive system into the blood. These things are sitting there, and before the nutrients get absorbed into the digestive system, they just absorb them. So you did all the work. You ate the food, you digested it, and then they suck them in. They take in your nutrients. Another thing they're doing, though, the whole time they're in you, they're hermaphroditic. So they're reproducing with themselves. These segments break off. They're full of eggs. Sometimes you'll get larvae inside your body. And those larvae can go and basically plant themselves in your muscles. They can even swim around and get into places like your brain and your heart and kill you. Typically, tapeworms aren't that dangerous, but it can be. But the thing is, when you eat a cow that has a tapeworm, you're eating its muscles. And in those muscles are these cysts, these sort of like an endospore for a bacteria. The worm is in there, but it's got a coat around it. When you eat it, what happens to that coat? What does your stomach acid do to that coat? It dissolves it, and out comes the worm, and you're infected. And it just keeps going. The cycle keeps continuing. Now, these things have a strange little head on them. This head is called the scolex. And notice it's got hooks. Those hooks hook into the wall of your intestine, so you don't flush it out. Notice that this one right here is probably, so it's about 25, 50, 75. That's at least 1.5 meters. So we're talking 5 feet maybe. And that came out of somebody. That's a real tapeworm. You can see why they're called flatworms. They are very, very flat. Right, the other class is this one. It's called the class is Turbellaria. Example is the planaria. This is a free-living organism. As you can see, it's got bilateral symmetry. If you draw a line down the middle, it's a mirror image. It's got a ganglia. What's ganglia? Any ideas? What a ganglion might be? It's a cluster of nerves, sort of like a primitive what? Brain. It's a very primitive type of brain. It's a cluster of nerves acting somewhat like a brain. It's not like this thing is going to think very much. It's mostly for reactions, but it does have a primitive brain. Notice that its mouth is down here on the ventral side. It's about where your belly button might be. That's not only its mouth, it's also its anus. It takes in food. The food goes into this cavity, this gastrovascular cavity. Again, what does gastro mean? Stomach. So it's like a digestive cavity, but it's also vascular, meaning it's like what? Vascular means like what? Vessels. Blood vessels. So this cavity not only digests the food, it also moves it throughout the body. You can see that gastrovascular cavity goes all the way from tail to head, digests the food, and then moves the nutrients throughout the body. So it's sort of like the digestive system and the circulatory system all thrown into one. Gastrovascular system. It looks like it's cross-eyed. Can't really see. Those are eye spots. So just let it track light. All right, the main group we want to talk about today, though, is this group, nematodes. Phylum Nematoda. I'll go to this slide to start out with. Nematodes are another kind of worm. They're said to be the round worms. Start with this fact. They're the most common multicellular organism on Earth. In just a shovel full of dirt, there are thousands of them. Very, very common. Mostly microscopic, tiny. For the most part, they're good. What are they doing in the dirt? Decomposing, recycling minerals. For the most part, they're a good thing. They are triploblastic. So they've got the 3 germ layers. They have bilateral symmetry, just like you do, 2 sides. Vermiform just means they're like worms, worm-like. They are not segmented. They have a body cavity. Their body cavity is called a pseudocoelom. A little bit different than your body cavity. Their body cavity is made from, it's made sort of in between the endoderm and the mesoderm. A normal body cavity, coelom, is usually made from what derm layer? Normal body cavity. It's made from the middle body cavity. What's the middle? I mean, from the middle derm layer. What's the middle derm layer? Middle derm layer. Speak up there, baby. Mesoderm. Mesoderm. All right, they're covered with the cuticle, which is sort of a thick protective coat. They have some cephalic organs. And again, what does cephalic mean? Head. They have a lot of organs in their head. They have cephalization. They have a complete digestive system, meaning mouth all the way to anus, just like yours. Complete digestive system, 2 openings. They have some collecting tubules, which part of their excretory system, sort of like your kidneys, very primitive kidney-like structures. No circulatory, no respiratory structures, which means to circulate and breathe, what are they dependent on? Diffusion. Just regular old diffusion through the skin. They have a longitudinal nerve cord, runs the length of their body. You have one too, right? Spinal cord. Something similar. The sexes are usually separate, meaning they're not hermaphrodites. Usually live on their own. They can be free living. Most of them are free living. Although there are some that are parasitic, and we're going to talk about some of those parasitic ones in a minute. It can cause a lot of diseases. And they can be found about anywhere. Ocean, freshwater, or land. They're said to have a hydrostatic skeleton. What's static mean? What's static mean? Same, not moving. And hydro means water. So that should tell you that water helps to keep what the same in these things? It's a skeleton. Their shape. Water helps to keep their shape the same. Hydrostatic skeleton. All right, these are some examples of some diseases that nematodes can cause. I got some pictures to show you some of this stuff. But even though we're going to talk about a lot of diseases, make sure you realize that statement. Most nematodes are good. They're free living and common in the soil. They're decomposers. But we're going to talk about the ones that are bad, because those are the ones people like to know about. Let's start with maybe the most extreme one. Let's talk about this right here, elephantiasis. Anybody know what that is? Elephantiasis? Yeah. You get these worms in your body through an insect bite. The worms get into your lymphatic system, your lymph vessels. What's the job of your lymph vessels? Main job. To recollect fluids that have leaked out of your blood vessels and put them back in your blood vessels. It's water mostly. These worms grow in there, clog them up. What starts to happen? If your lymph vessels are clogged up and they normally recollect water, you start to swell. And you swell really bad. I'll show you a picture. Real picture. Look at the guy's leg. And sometimes it gets so bad that your foot almost becomes round. It gets so swollen. So that's why it's called elephantiasis. Your foot looks like an elephant. It's not just your legs that can be affected. Other body parts can too. So that's a mess. It's gotta be painful. Okay. Where does it happen? India, Africa, tropical places for the most part. All right, another example of these guys is pinworms. And I'm going to bet that somebody in this room has had pinworms before. Anybody want to fess up and admit it? All right. You get pinworms, and I'll put this as gingerly as I can, from eating poop. Probably not intentionally. Oh, okay. So what happens, you're at a day, let's say you're a kid at daycare, and you have a pinworm infection.
Wait, isn't this going around somewhere?
Hey, it goes around daycares all the time.
No, it's at school right now. I saw on the news this morning in Birmingham.
I'll have to check the news.
Yeah, this is a school, and it's like an elementary school, and the school's like being it was like being cleaned out this morning because there was like 6 kids that were sent home.
With pinworm. I have to check that out. Anyway, here's the deal. Little kids at a daycare. These pinworms grow in your intestines, and they're sort of like a tapeworm. They suck up your nutrients. But every so often, they come out. Where do they come out? Anus. And they lay their eggs around there. Well, that makes you itch. So you scratch. What do you get all over your hands? Pinworm eggs with other things. Okay? But we're talking about little kids mostly, people who get it. So they've been scratching. What do the little kids do after they go scratch? They go play with toys. Well, what does the next little kid do with those toys? Straight in his mouth, where all little kids like to put their toys. And those eggs get in there, they hatch, and the cycle just starts over. Dogs get these all the time. A lot of times you can see it in dog food. Next time you get a chance, go look at some dog food. See what you can see. They typically don't hurt you. They're medicines to treat it, but it's kind of gross. Another example is, let's go to this one. Let's go to heartworms. These are pretty cool. First of all, can people get heartworms? Not that I know of. Typically, what's the animal that gets heartworms? Dogs. I'm sure there's some other things too. At one point in time, a vet gave me a dog heart of a dog that had died of heartworms. I don't know what ended up happening to the heart, but it looked like it had spaghetti noodles coming out of it. Every blood vessel that went in or out of that heart was filled solid with this stuff that looked like spaghetti noodles coming out. And it wasn't just coming out the blood vessels. These things had burrowed holes in the sides of the heart. It's coming out the holes that they made. How do they get the heartworms in the first place? Mosquito bites. Mosquito bites transmit heartworms from dog to dog. Those same mosquitoes might bite you. So why don't you get heartworms? Your immune system, human immune system, wipes it out. Not something that we're susceptible to. But very common in dogs and very deadly. Talk about another one, river blindness. This one happens mostly in tropical places too. Insect bites, again, transmit these worms. They get in you, they get into the retinas of your eyes, start feeding off your eye. Go blind. Right here. Mostly Africa, it's pretty common there. Pretty common. One more, actually 2 more I'll mention. This one, hookworms, is still common here. Used to be really common in this part of the world, southeastern United States. How'd you get a hookworm infection?
Not wearing my shoes.
Walking around barefooted. These worms live in the soil, typically around where animals are going to the bathroom. Some infected animal goes to the bathroom. You walk through or near that, barefooted. These little worm larvae are all over the ground. They burrow into your body. They get into your blood vessels. They get into your organs, drill holes in things they're not supposed to be drilled holes in, suck your blood, eat your blood, suck in your nutrients. It's a bad infection to make you really, really sick. There are some medicines to treat it, but it used to be really, really common in the United States, especially the South, because people couldn't afford to wear shoes here in the summer. Change now. All right, then one more I'll mention is this one right here called the trichinella. That's the name of the worm. The disease they cause is called trichinosis. Any idea where you get those from? Undercooked pork. You never want to eat pork that's not well done. Because what happens is these worms are burrowed up in the meat, the muscle of the pig. That's what we eat. And they'll go into your muscles and they can cause all kinds of tetanus. What's tetanus? Any idea what that is, tetanus? Yeah, well, It's not the rust that causes it. There are bacteria that live in like rusty, dirty places that cause a similar disease. This is muscle contraction, like a constant cramp that won't stop. And if that goes in certain parts of your body, what happens? Say, for example, your diaphragm goes into tetanus. You die. You can't breathe. So this can be really painful. I mean, you've all had your toes where your toes have been curling under. That can happen in other parts of your body. It can be very uncomfortable. There are also a lot of roundworms that cause plant diseases, and they cost farmers a lot of money. So even though I make this statement that most are free living and common and good things, mineral recyclers, there are some that cause disease. I'll show you a couple pictures. Those are pinworms, showing you that they live in the small intestine mostly. This is showing you the heartworm cycle. Don't say too much about that one. Here's hookworm. You can see these little larvae burrow in through the soles of your feet. They get in your small intestine, in your bloodstream. They can even get in your lungs and cause problems. And then when you go to the bathroom, the eggs come out. If you go outside, they land on the ground, they hatch, they can infect something else. Here's a little bit better picture of heartworms. Not sure how well you can see it from where you're sitting, but the mosquito bites the dog. The heartworm larvae get into the heart, and you see how that looks like spaghetti in the vessels of the heart. Clogs up the heart, stops it from working. Very deadly for the dog. There's a little closer picture. All this stuff up here, and all this stuff in here, and in there, those are all worms coming out of the heart. And this is showing you how trichina works, trichinosis worms. Pretty complicated cycle. It can involve people, rats, pigs. So notice what's happening here. The pig is taking in the cyst. The worm gets into its meat. We eat the undercooked meat. Those larvae hatch out in your body, end up going to all over your body, but mostly they get into they can get into the mucosa, the mucous membranes. They can get into your intestines, and they can lodge in your muscles and cause all kinds of problems. That's what that's trying to show you right there. So a larva encysted inside some muscles. There's our elephantiasis. All right, we'll go ahead and mention one more group briefly. And that group you've probably heard of before. It's called mollusca. Mollusks. Probably heard them called mollusks. Mollusks are a pretty varied group. Mollusks are things like snails and slugs, clams and scallops, and squid and octopus. Pretty varied group. Snails and slugs, clams and scallops, squids and octopus, and some other things. The word itself, mollusk, means soft body. You ever looked at a slug up close? Really soft, slimy body. Snail, scallop, clam, even a squid and an octopus. Soft bodies. Like us, though, these things have bilateral symmetry. Two sides that are mirror images of each other. They typically are not segmented. They do have a head. And what do we call that when they have a head with sense organs in it? Cephalization. Cephalized. Also, their body wall, their ventral body wall, which is their belly side, right? Belly side has what's called a foot. If you've ever watched a snail crawl, there's a muscle right there on its ventral side that helps it move, right? If you've ever watched a clam, how does a clam move? Yeah, it sticks out this little thing that looks sort of like a hatchet. That's its foot, and it just pushes with it. Pushes off the ground with it. So their ventral side, their belly side, has this foot that helps them move, locomotion. Their dorsal wall, their back wall, makes this covering called the mantle. And the mantle can make up, eventually, gills or lungs, depending on which kind of mollusk we're talking about. And it also makes the shell in some of them. Not all of them have a shell, like a snail, or slug rather. Slugs don't have shells, obviously. They do have a coelom. They have a body cavity, but it's small. They don't have very many organs. They're pretty simple animals. Their coelom is mostly just around their little heart. They have a complete digestive system, which means from mouth all the way to anus, different organs in between. And a lot of them eat with this structure called the radula. And I want to show you a picture of that. Sort of looks like a chainsaw. That's a radula. Where's that at? It's kind of scary looking when it's blown up. That's on their tongue. Sometimes it's called a rasping tongue. The radula. Helps them scrape things. What does a snail eat? Little pieces of plant. Scrapes them off of this thing. Helps to scrape. Alright, so let's back up again. Alright, they have what's called an open circulatory system. Is that what you have? No, yours is closed. In your body, when does your blood leave your blood vessels? In your body, when does your blood leave the blood vessels? It doesn't. That's why it's called closed. In an open system, these things usually have a heart and a couple of main vessels. Let me show you another picture. Here's the heart. Notice the blood vessel just sort of stops there. When the heart pumps, what happens to the blood? It gets sprayed out. And basically it bathes the organs. It's like a blood bath. Then when the heart contracts, it sucks the blood back in. When it relaxes. Contracts, it pushes the blood out. When it relaxes, it's like a vacuum. It sucks it back in, pushes it out. Sucks it in, pushes it out. It's an open system. Not nearly as efficient and effective as your system. A lot of things have, the insects have the same kind of circulatory system. An open circulatory system. In terms of the way they breathe, respire. Some have gills. We'll look at an example of that in a minute. Some have lungs. And some breathe through this covering of their body. Their body covering is called the mantle. And then some even just breathe through their skin. A snail or a slug can just sometimes just breathe through their skin. So there's a lot of different ways they can breathe. Gills, lungs, mantle, or just through the body surface. They have these two structures that are like kidneys, called metanephridia. They have a nervous system with ganglia. And again, what do we say ganglia were? What are ganglia? Clusters of nerves, sort of like primitive like brains. Not very smart for the most part, although there's an exception. There's one group of mollusks called cephalopods. You guys ought to be able to look at that word. What does it mean? Head, foot. Cephalopods are like an octopus and squid. What have you heard about an octopus before? What do you know about an octopus? Smart. You can teach an octopus to do tricks. You can train an octopus. Supposedly, they are the smartest invertebrates. They have a pretty well-developed brain. And pretty well-developed eyes, for that matter. It's not the case in most mollusks. Most just have simple nerves that let them react to things. Not a lot of thinking going on. They do have sense organs that let them pick up touch, smell, taste. That's balance, right? Equilibrium is balance. And even vision in some. And in those cephalopods, squid and octopus, they have very good vision. Maybe better than yours in some cases. We're going to talk about three main classes of mollusks, very briefly. The first one we're going to talk about are called gastropods. And there's that gastro again. What do we say gastro meant? Stomach. So that means stomach, foot. These are things that crawl on their belly. Slugs and snails, mostly. These are like slugs and snails. It's the most numerous group of mollusks. There's about 40,000 different kinds of living gastropods. As it says here, they're usually sluggish and sedentary. What does sedentary mean? It means you just sit around mostly. Don't move much. A lot of them have heavy shells. They don't move very fast. They can only move pretty slow. These are some examples. The two main ones that I want you to know are snails and slugs. Although at some point in time I'll show you some pictures of some sea slugs. Last time I was down at the beach, you're the one who caught that big sea slug. Matthew caught a big sea slug. It's gross. It looked like a big hunk of snot, basically. That was a sea slug. Bivalvia is the next class. When we talk about valves in relation to mollusks, we're talking about shells. So these are things with two shells. These are things like mussels that we have down in the Flint River, clams, scallops, oysters, and even these things called shipworms. Again, the valve means shells, so there are two shells. Most of them are sedentary. They don't move very much. They're filter feeders. They have a way, sort of like sponges, of pulling in water, filtering out the nutrients, eating, passing out the waste. And it's kind of strange that one of the ways they filter the food is their gills help to catch the food. Their gills are like covered in slime, mucus. And as the water passes over the gills, it takes in oxygen. It also catches food. And those gills have cilia on them that push the food toward the mouth opening. So that's how they actually eat. Most of these guys, these bivalves, have no head. You've seen a clam before. Not really a head there. They don't have a radula. They don't have that chainsaw-like tongue. And very little cephalization, because they don't really have much of a head at all. And in the last class, cephalopods, head foot. And again, these are things like squid, the octopus, the nautilus. What's a nautilus look like? Anybody know what a nautilus looks like? It looks like a squid with what? A squid with a shell. It looks like a squid in a snail's shell. Big snail shell. And a cuttlefish is similar to a squid. Very similar to a squid. What we'll say about these guys is they're by far the most complicated mollusks. They are all marine. They all live in the oceans. They're active predators. They're smart. They have their foot is near their head region, right underneath their head. And most of these guys move by sucking in water and then spraying it out. Sucking in water, spraying it out. It's like jet propulsion. They use water currents to move. All right, there's our snail. Again, point out the radula, the rasping tongue helps them to eat. Notice here's the gill. Here's the coelom in blue. The heart, the blood vessel just the ends. It's an open system. And they have a few digestive organs, but there's not a lot there. Anybody ever dissected a clam? Used to do that in biology classes here. There's not a whole lot to see. There's a little bit better picture, maybe. That was actually a snail. This is a clam. Notice that water gets pulled in. It goes over the gills. As the water goes over the gills, oxygen gets taken out. So does food. Eventually, the cilia on these gills will push the food over here to the mouth. And from there, it'll go in, it'll go through all the digestive organs, and then eventually the waste currents will come out. Notice the heart. Blood vessel is just sort of dead end. It's an open system. And there's a few other organs in there. These things right here are muscles that help to open and close the shell. This is the foot. Right here, actually. That's the foot. And then the back side is covering is the mantle. And I think that's where we will stop. Maybe it's